Hello, and today we're going to be going through the EES Electrical Estimating and PDF Takeoff. So just before we get started and start actually going in to create a quotation, if you do need any help with anything that we discuss, please do just go to your support page, which it should be on the top right of nearly all of the pages, whether that's on the PDF or the estimating, where you will be able to find all of our contact details plus any frequently asked questions, as you can see there in the articles, so we can help you out in any way that we can. Okay, so to actually start a quotation, you just go to your new button and give that a press, and that then creates the job for us. So there's two sections in here that we're going to want to fill out, which is the job header and then the labor settings down here. So the job code is pretty simple. Just input a job number for yourselves. Now this is something that we can actually get automatically generated up for you, and it's the only thing that you are actually required to fill in on this page. The rest of it from there is all pretty self-explanatory. So job name, simply just put in the job which you're doing. There we go. And then client name, you can actually start to build up your own client database and store them there for future use on future quotations. So you just press your add new and you just input their information in, and their information will actually go onto your quotation, plus you will be able to filter any of your job listings by the client as well. Now, two other features that you've got here is a tender submission date, so you can actually select when it needs to be submitted by. The purpose of this is it will actually change colour on the amend job page as you get closer and closer towards that date, and all of the colours and actually when the timings in which they will change over can all be accessed through the back end in the tools section. You also have the ability to set a parent code, which is effectively a grouping code, so you can do that to a group of quotations to help you organize them and to find them easier, and use it in whatever way you most seem fit. Okay, so now we get down here and we get to our labor section. So the first thing in here is travel distance, how many miles away. So what we can do using these three boxes down here, basic cost per mile, a lodge value, and then a start point of lodge, is the accumulated time that we built up from all of the individual items which we've selected, is going to build up the total amount of hours or days which we need on the job. And from there it's then going to work out the basic cost for us. So it's one of those things, once you fill it in, this table will stay filled in for you, so then you can simply just input how many miles away it is. And the same thing with the daily additional cost. It's very simple, whatever value you input in with the accumulated time and amount of days given is just going to add it all up together for you. So to actually add in your labour rates to go against the amount of hours which we're about to get all added up together along with our material costs, you just press add new, and then you can come in here and simply input whatever your hourly rate might be. So you can put in multiple different labour rates, and you do have the ability to alter any of the descriptions that are here. You can also include anything like holiday insurance and pension rate and daily other allowance, which is exactly the same as daily additional costs, but you can have that preset which is suitable for an out of town rate or anything along those lines, or however you decide you wanted to break it up. Now, to go alongside that with the unit materials and our installation times, you can actually set your job to either be one or the other as well. Rather than being in a supply and fit quote, you can say I just want to use the installation times, or I just want to use the trade prices. There is also some other little settings down here in the show advanced options area, but this is something we will actually help you out with the support people, or if you go along with our training courses, then we will help you to figure out which of these settings is best going to be suitable for you. So once you've actually gone through and you've filled out all of this information, simply just press the continue button, which is actually just going to create the job up for us. We can come back and amend any of this information at any point except for the job code. That is the only thing that we will not be able to go back and alter. Okay, now that's taken us through to the second stage, the takeoff area. So this is where we can select either our items over here on the left hand side, or we can create our sectional structure here in the middle, and then we can see the relevant items that we've placed inside each section in our go to examine grid over here on the right. So the bit that we're going to want to look at first is the section structure for the tender return. So what we have the ability to do here is make multiple different sections with multiple levels of subsections attached into them. So you can create this up however you want. I'm just going to make a very basic breakdown just to give you an example of different locations and services within those locations. So what I'm going to do is start off by using this A level section and rename that to ground floor. I know that's an A because it's got it highlighted down here. So what I want to do is apply a B level section to this. So I'm going to go B and plus. So that will create us a subsection inside of ground floor. This is then when I can add in my different services, in my particular instances, like small power. Now I want another same level subsection, so I'm just going to leave B highlighted and hit plus. That will allow me to input things like lighting and the other services which I need. Now I can of course go further down in subsections, but I don't particularly need to in this instance. You just follow the same principles. You highlight the relevant section, you highlight what level you'd like it to go to, and you press the plus icon. Now if you want to go back and create the next floor, it's pretty simple. Once again, you go A plus first floor, B plus small power, B plus lighting. That's all you would have to do. But what I'm going to do, because I want the same section names inside my main section, I'm just going to duplicate the ground floor folder. So that will then allow me just to rename this from copied section to being called first floor. And now I have two main sections with the same subsections inside of it. Okay, so now that I've got all of my sections created, there's effectively two different ways that we can go from here. We can either use the EES database over here and manually start inputting the different items in which we need, or we could switch over onto our PDF takeoff to help us take off those quantities to just read the information straight in here to give us our total hours and total material costs. So what I'm going to do is try and give us a little example of both of those. So I'm going to add in a couple of items from our database and show you those options, and then move off onto the takeoff. So if I particularly want to go into my lighting section and then come over here on the left and go to one of these 8 categories, I can look at the databases and manufacturers we have in for lighting. As you can see here, they're all listed out, and all I have to do is simply navigate my way through, choose my manufacturer, choose what main index I would prefer, and then simply choose the sub-index, and then finally which items that I would need. Now once you're actually in here, this is then when you can see the individual items product codes, its descriptions, and over here you can see the items unit hours, so their individual labor times that we've set up against each and every item. And then over here you can see the unit cost, so that is the net rate that I'm paying, so that is the trade price minus the discount. Now once I've actually added in a couple of these different items which I need, I'd simply press confirm, and they've now gone live on the screen in my ground floor lighting section. I can see all of their information on screen. So I can see the individual unit hours plus the total labour hours, and then that's set against my £20 per hour we set up in the job header to tell us actually what our labour cost of fitment is going to be. Then over here, further along to the right, you can see the trade price of these materials, what discount we're currently getting to give us our individual net rate, plus the total material cost and total cost again. Now all of these can actually be totaled up down here at the bottom, which is actually set on a per section basis, as you can see if I switch over like that. And you can actually get it to tell you just the totals of some individual line items if you just highlight them, right click, and press the display total of selected lines, this option here. So in here you can see then total hours, cost, material cost, and then grand total. But there is other ways of looking through the database. You don't necessarily just have to go through these options here. You do have the ability to go into our advanced search button here, which will allow you to go through and view all of our manufacturers and every single item that we have available from them. So once again, you go through, set your way through the categorization, look at the relevant item, and if you want to look at that in a bit more information, either press the more info button or confirm. And that will then take you to this page where then we can see this information all set out to us again and make sure this is the right item. If it isn't, simply just press confirm reselect, which will instantly take us back to the menu, so then we can quickly select on the next item and make sure that's the right one, and then simply input it in and confirm if we want to go back to that menu, and confirm reselect if we wanted to go find another item as well. So there is ways of actually being able to input quicker. Now in the advanced search there is a couple of different ways to search as well, such as description or product code, which can be done by this search bar up here on the top right, by the way, at any stage. Or you can view all of our manufacturers without the categorization, or you can actually just go through and view the items via component types if that's something which you prefer to do. Now if you are still struggling at finding any particular item at all, whether that's because the item isn't, the particular manufacturer isn't in the database, or you just simply don't have the time to look for the item, you do of course have the ability to input your own. We've got two methods for that. We have contractor's choice and non-standard. The differences being non-standard is for one-off items. You simply click non-standard, assign it to one of our relevant categories, the same as they are over there on the left, and then simply input what you'd want the description, quantity, and labour hours and cost to be. Now if you wanted to do that but save that for future use, then it is contractor's choice you want. So in here you can do the exact same thing, but you have the ability to save them, plus you have the ability to organise it all with a main index and a sub-index, which will then finally take you to the individual items. Now the real benefit of using Enzyme with all the different materials is not to be adding them individually one by one, it's to be using the assemblies. So what the assemblies are, you can go through and you can create all your own different versions of these. So if you want, we can look at these cable management train hanger examples. So if I just press amend, you can see these are accumulated different items where you can go through and you can preset the different quantities so it knows when to allow the correct amount of items. So what that's going to do is then go through and then use our individual hours and trade price to accumulate that to give you a nice total of when you go to use it, of how long this is going to take to install or buy, in my particular instance in a per meter case. So I can go through and say I have 20 meters of this, and then it's going to go through and then give us all of the individual items, and once again do the exact same thing as what it was doing before. This will speed up the process of estimating massively, whether that's if you're using it on the PDF Takeoff or whether you are just using it manually here in the estimating to add individual items. It saves you from having to go look up the items and everything else. And if you have put them in the wrong section or anything like that, we do have nice basic functionality of copy, cut and paste, so you can easily cut it from where you need it to go and paste it where you'd like it to be. The keyboard shortcuts do work for that as well if you do know them. So there is a couple of other things that you can add on over here on the left hand side, such as the ability to add in any quotations. So you can go for subcon and specials, select a relevant category, which of course you can see is very different from our category list over there, and you can actually add in your own categories into this list as well just by adding in new ones. So that is something that's quite easy to do. But all you have to do is select on the relevant category you'd need, and then you can simply input the quotation or whatever you need it to be in here. And that will actually sit as a slightly different coloured line, just so you can actually see it's different, which will be this purple colour as you can see there. You also have the ability to input labour onlys, which works on the same basis as the non-standards. These are going to be one-off inputs. They're very suitable for anything like removal, strip outs, anything along the lines of that. But it isn't the only way which you can allow for just labour in particular instances. So if this section becomes a labour only section, you do have the ability to just come over here and turn the materials off, and vice versa with labour if this suddenly became a supply only section. You will not have to go through and zero out the times or the costs. You can also include a comment line that will actually sit onto your quotation if you'd like to do that as well. Now that's everything to do with this left hand side with manually inputting items into this particular quotation. If you wanted to do it from the PDF Takeoff to actually take off the quantities and read it directly in, all we've got to do instead is go over to our PDF Takeoff software and upload our drawings onto the cloud and then get them live on screen, and then we can use the same database options that we've just covered to actually go through and take off those quantities. So what I'm going to want to start off by doing is opening up the cloud storage just by pressing the Browse Cloud Documents button here, which will then load up our cloud storage. So this is where any drawings we're going to want to upload. It's also where we'd save them to. It's also where we're going to export any reports from the software to as well. So what I'm going to want to do is minimize and get myself to my desktop, find where I've saved my drawing, and simply copy and paste that, and I'm going to paste that directly into my drawings folder, as that's where the PDF Takeoff software is going to be looking for them. So I'll paste it in there, I shut this down, and I simply go back and I open up my PDF Takeoff, and then I just go to my yellow open button over here. So I'll open that. As I said, it will automatically look into your drawing folder, so you can instantly open up your drawings, press the open button, and that will then be live on screen. So then what we need to do from here is just make sure that we're okay with moving around and navigating with the drawing. So usually you do this simply with your mouse wheel by zooming you in and out of the drawing like so. Roll the wheel towards the monitor to where you want to go, and roll it back towards yourself to zoom yourself back out. And then what I do to move around is I push and hold the wheel in, which allows me to sort of pan around the drawing and drag myself around. Now, if you're not actually too much of a fan of the zoom in and out functionality, that can be turned off in your preferences. So instead you'll just be using your mouse wheel to use the slider tool, which then means you'll have to use the zoom in and out buttons up here to just zoom in particularly whereabouts on the drawing you'd like to see, and then zoom yourself back out once you need to. Okay, so now that we're okay with moving around on the drawing, before we get started we need to double check that we have the scale set up correctly. So what we've got here, it says that our scale is 1 to 50, so I'm going to come up here to my scale option, I'm going to set it to the relevant scale, and then I'm going to use our ruler tool just to double check a distance just to make sure that we're happy with that. So I'm going to measure from one side of the door to the other, and it says that's only 466mm, which doesn't sound quite right. So what I can do is either I can go to the scale option, try a different one, or alternatively I can just go straight for the custom scale, and in here I could write 175 or whatever scale options aren't in the drop down menu, but I'm going to use this button here, which will allow me to go in and set my own custom scale. So I can click here to here, which will then allow me to input what I believe the door measurement should be. So I'm going to say 900mm and press OK, and that's given me the scale that you can see there to 1 to 98. So I can safely assume that that's actually 1 to 100, and then just use the ruler tool again just to be sure. And there we are. Now that's much happier with the distances that it's giving us. So now we can just go around and decide where we would actually like to start on the drawing and where we're actually going to go from. And once we've done that and decided on what we are actually going to be doing, all we simply have to do is come over here and select what color highlighter we would like to be using. So obviously if we're counting up the blue symbols, don't use a blue colour, use a contrasting colour just to make your life easier, and make sure you give it a service name underneath. Now I like to try to match the service names to the section names on the estimating of where I'd like the information to go, just to make it a little bit easier for me. So for example, I can say small power and then sockets, just like that. So that will input, so actually when I start to do my inputting, it's going to log it with this information over here. So now we can come back up here to the database options or any of the other options which we've got up here, and then we can start using these items. So if I go for the assembly, and I'm going to go for the socket, switches and spares, and once again I'm just going to look at my view assembly just to make sure I'm happy with all of the information in there, unit hours, the unit cost and the quantities. So I'm happy with that information, so I'm simply just going to confirm that, and then all I have to do is actually go around and just left click everywhere where I'd like one of them, where I'd need one of these, sorry. So as you can see, it's quite easy to go around and simply jot down everything that you'd need, and then simply once you've finished with one particular set of item, you can just right click to say that you've finished, and then go off and then select the next relevant item or set of items which you need, to then go through and do the other logs. Now if you've just done what I've done, and that was forget to actually change your service, we've got two options. We can either rename the service down here to what we need it to be, or we can simply undo the two counts which we've done, and then we can go through and change it all over here. So I could change this to lighting type B1 in my particular instance. Simply press my reselect tool and then carry on with what I was doing. So go through and then count all of these up. So as you can see, you get the idea of that. It's quite easy. It's the same process if it's for a light, socket, switch, any form of CCTV. And you can also do all of your linear runs. Now with the linear runs, it's all the same process. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cable here. So I'm just going to go through, select the cable, and once again we can see all of the different information. So we've got different install times and prices for all the individual types of cable in which we've got. So I'm just going to go for some 2.5. And then I can simply just actually go through and map out the different lighting cable runs that I would like to do if that was my preferred method of doing it. So all I've done is left clicked into each corner, and now I'll finalize that with a right click, and I could do it over here just the same. So left click, left click, left click, left click. This is then where I'm going to use my pan tool, so push the wheel in to move myself, left click, and now finally finalize that all with a right click. There we are. So we can see that the information's actually all started to log itself down here, so we can see the different meterages in which I've done. So when we read this across in a minute, it's going to combine that all and then give us the total price and time.
Now, with any of the linear items such as trunking, tray, basket or conduit, to actually take them off, you do it all in the same format of left clicking to plot out each individual runs that you would need to do, and then right clicking to finalize that once that's done, and then which you can start your new plotting points just by once again left clicking, and then once again finalizing that with a right click.
So once all of that information has all been done and you're happy with the drawing and that you've taken off all of the information in which you need, all you've got to do is make sure that the job's still open and you're actually on the takeoff page of the estimating, and then you just come up here to the export to estimating button, give that a press, which will then show us our job information. Simply just press confirm, which is going to mark all these tick boxes down here. There we are, so we know it has been successfully sent over. Switch over to the estimating software and then simply press the import PDF button down here, the big orange one. Give that a press, and then we'll see our two different services that we've used, and then we can assign them to our different areas over here. So I'm going to go for small power, and I want my small power to be read into there, and vice versa with the lighting into the lighting area. There we are, so that's now put all of my individual items in there. Once again, I can come down here and see the total cost of any of these at any point. So if that was the quotation finished and I'm ready to start moving on from there, all I do is I simply just press the continue button, which would allow us to move forward and actually calculate all of that through. But just as a quick reminder, always make sure after you finish your PDF takeoff, make sure you save your drawing and you rename it to a slightly different version. So then you can always go back into your Browse Cloud Documents to copy that particular drawing back onto your desktop so you can have that on your side for your own records. Okay, so just moving away from there, then back onto the estimating. So we finished actually adding in all of the different items which we need. We're simply just going to press the continue button. If you have noticed, there has been a couple of warning triangles just telling us about some missing information and where to find it, but I can simply press continue, which is actually going to group all of that information on screen at once for me, so I can actually very easily just go up to this discount and either input what the particular discount it is that I get off of this particular product, which I'll always have the opportunity to either save it just for this job or save it permanently for future use. I'm just going to go for the job. Or what I can actually do, if I know a particular net rate, I can always come back to this page and go to the unit material box and then type in how much it is that I believe it ought to be. So it can very easily just type that info in, press enter, and then that will store it as a net rate. So I can simply press the continue button again, and that has now dealt with all the unpriced items and simply calculated us forward based off all the current trade prices. Now this is something more for future sake, but if you've got to come back to this job at any point, you will always be met with these couple of options of being able to retain material prices from when you last calculated it, manually see which items have changed and do a yes and no scenario to which prices you want to update, or you can automatically update everything up to the current trade prices. So obviously these types of options are going to be a bit more applicable once you send the quotation out. Perhaps you need to do a revision, or you're revising a quotation, or anything along the lines of that. Now if you do need some help with the calculation option, make sure you've got your support button just up here and just get in contact with us. So if I simply continue forward, then this takes us forward to the summary table, which is giving us a complete breakdown of all of the material prices that we've used, including all of the installation times that we've done. And we can go through and simply add on any percentages that we'd like to either the individual material types, the labour, or we could do it quite generically and put it in as either general overhead and profit. We've also got the ability just to input a gross profit if that's how you would prefer to work. So however it is, it should be nice and easy for you to go through and work. So if I just put in some example figures for you there, so we've got 10% overhead and 20% profit. And what we've got is the breakdown all up here of the individual materials as well as the installation time total against our £20 per hour. And that gets all the way followed down here and gets totaled up to this figure, which then the 10% overhead being applied, and these figures are being then added together to then have another 20% taken away to show us our profit. And then from there, we've always got the ability to add on any builder's discounts, preliminaries, prime cost and provisional sums as well. So builder's discount is only over here. The prime cost is just up here along the top tab, and you can rename any of these to simply just input the amount which you need and have the suitable description. And then with your prelims, that actually goes across into a bit more detail, and you have the ability to pick and choose how you would actually like to input your different prelims. And of course you can simply just adjust any of these descriptions, and these can be saved permanently or done just for this job depending on your preference. And alongside with the prelims, you do have the ability to spread them or to show them. So if you would want to hide them away, then it is done at a tick of a button. So that will then take us all the way to our gross contract cost. Now what we're going to probably want to do from there is print off some internal documents for ourselves. So we can go here to this select reports button where we've got many different reports to give us all types of information that we could possibly need. So for example, if I just show us a couple, so I can show us the takeoff summary, the tender profit summary, and a material summary. So we just hit preview and export. The first one is the tender profit summary. This is giving us a complete breakdown of all the different sections that we've done and showing us our net material cost, as well as actually how much overall profit we're making in the particular area, and then doing the exact same thing over here on the labour hours as well. And if we actually inputted any prelims on that, it shows how and where that's all being spread and being assigned. And same thing with builders and the prime costs and provisional sums. This next report is a material summary on price. This is absolutely perfect for sending this over to any of your wholesalers to get a live quotation off of what we've just quoted. It includes all of the product codes, has all of the items and how many, and gives you the unit of measure as well, so there is no confusion. This next report is almost like a bill of quantities labour material split at your cost. But there is obviously a few differences in here. So we can see that it's given us our sectional breakdown, showing us the individual items with the quantity, unit material price, discount, and finally getting to our net, and then showing us the same thing on the labour. So we're getting the labour totals. So it's actually quite easy to go through and view all of this information to make sure that we are happy with it. It's almost like being able to print off the takeoff sheet, which we were working on the takeoff page a moment ago. This one does actually go across a couple of pages, so you can just use your arrows up here to move yourself across to the next couple of pages. If you do want to export this or any of the other reports that we've just looked at, whenever it's on your screen, simply come down here to the bottom right and you can select whatever file format is going to be most suitable for yourself, and then simply just press your export report button. That's going to come up and want to save in the report's location. Let it do so, rename it if you want to, and simply just press your save button. That's then going to go through and save it for us and actually export it. So now we've got it here. So in the same method of which we've done to upload a drawing onto the cloud documents, we're going to do the same thing to download that onto our local machines. So I'm actually just going to go through and go to the desktop this way, just as it's a little bit quicker, and then I just right click and paste. And now that document is on my local side of the machine and I can do whatever I wish with that. Now that's going to be the same thing for the final quotation printouts, which is on the next page. Now do remember, select reports is only for internal use. None of these are going to be necessarily suitable for your clients. What you're going to want to do is press continue and go forward to the final stage of bills. This is then where you'll be able to produce any tender summaries or quantified schedule of rates, and you can actually set up some preset documentation in the back end of the software as well if you wanted to, which you can load up currently and make any adjustments on the drafts. So I'm just going to press the preview and export and show you a couple of options that we have. The first one being the section summary. So this is giving us the total prices of our individual sections that we've done. You can also view the tender summary, which is the next one, which is the same style report, just done a little bit differently and giving you some subtotals in my particular instance of each floor, or however you've broken it down yourself. And then finally you get a made schedule of rates based off of all the prices, the current trade prices, your discount, with our installation times, with your overheads and profits already being added on for you, instantly made. So you can see there we've got a quantity, if you look at the first line, of how much of the hanger and tray we need, and it's going through, it's telling us, and it's saying how much each one is going to be supply and fit, and then our total cost, and then finally the total cost of the section. This, very similar to the other report, does go across a couple of sections for us as well. And one thing that we can do as well for these types of reports is we can actually get your company letterhead inputted up here at the top, so that the quotation does come out with all of your information on, as well as your client's information, which we mentioned earlier. So all of this is exported all in the exact same way we've just gone through with the report section. You just need to select the particular format in which you wish, and then copy and paste it directly to where you need it. Now, if you do need any more help with actually going through with anything that we've just covered, once again, just go to your support section and please feel free to get in contact with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.